What's up, design family, and welcome back to another episode of Fittdesign TV. So glad to have you back on the channel. On today's episode, we'll be looking at the key reason why your fashion brand is failing. And I'll cut right to the chase. Your fashion brand is failing because of a lack of your competitive edge. You're not keeping up with your competitors, you don't know what they're doing, and ultimately, you're going to be left in the dust. In today's episode, we'll be looking at key ways to analyze your competitors and ultimately to know what these steps that you need to do or the steps that you need to take to achieve a leg up on the competition so that your competitors don't swoop in right under your nose, so that they don't take your customers, and so that ultimately you can carve out a unique niche for yourself where you're the top player and you're ultimately giving your customers something that they can't get elsewhere, and ultimately you're giving them a unique experience that's going to push your brand forward, that's going to keep you ahead of the competition. Yes, with any fashion brand, it's important to retain a sense of authenticity, but this should not come at the cost of being blindsided by what your competitors are doing. A good business is always achieving a healthy balance of knowing what path they're on and having a good ear to the ground and seeing what their industry is becoming and understanding what their competitors are doing so that they can strategically move and stay ahead of the competition. What's up, design family, and welcome to Fittdesign TV. So glad to have you here. On this channel, we discuss all things sports fashion, graphic design, manufacturing, and technology. We'll discuss key topics, answer pressing questions, and provide actionable steps on starting your own product line. If you're interested in any of the above topics, stick around. You're in for a good one. When it comes to avoiding failure, it's all about staying competitive. How does one stay competitive? Well, one stays competitive by exceeding the competition. And in order to exceed your competition and to get a leg up on the competition, you need to know who your customers or who this competition is. So you start off by profiling your competition. Most people don't know who is in their industry. They're so far into their own niche that they have no idea or no semblance of what competitors exist in their space. So step one is always to profile your competitors. Understand where they exist, who they are, understand how long they've been active for. So there's key areas that I want you to target when it comes to profiling your competitors. Number one is list them. This may seem so simple, but it honestly astounds me how few companies are doing this. You need to find out where they are. The easiest way to do this is a quick Google search. Let's just say you're in the sportswear domain. Well, search sportswear brands and look at the top lists of items or companies that come up. From there, you need to start to figure out who these competitors are specifically. Understand that even within a fashion space like sportswear, there's going to be sub-niches and sub-categories. You're obviously not going to be competing with all sportswear brands. Some sportswear brands are specifically catered towards the CrossFit market. Some are more towards the powerlifting market. Understanding your niche first and knowing where your competitors are within this niche is going to go a long way. It's going to give you a focused way to approach your marketing strategy, your product development strategy, so that you can compete at the highest level within your niche. 2 or 3, you need to also analyze the products and the pricing strategies of your competitors in your space. You don't want to underprice yourself, and at the same time, you don't want to overprice yourself. Figure out what your niche is commanding and what competitors in your space of similar product types are also commanding. By underpricing yourself, you're going to do 2 things. Number one, you may actually end up creating a business structure in an environment that does not create a financial sense of stability. Yes, you may be selling product and turning over revenue, but if your profit margins are not high enough, this is not going to take you a long way. At the same time, by underpricing yourself, you may be positioning a perfectly great product as a suboptimal product. Funny enough, people respond to the price tags they see. This is just human nature. The more exclusive or the more elusive something is, potentially by pricing it out of the market or pricing it at a higher price point, this may actually appeal to your customers depending on the actual niche that you're in. On the other side, you don't want to overprice yourself, because when you overprice yourself, you cut out certain key categories of customers. And if you overprice yourself too much, you end up completely shrinking the pool of customers that can actually appeal or can actually buy from your brand. So this is where analyzing your competitors in your space, knowing who you want to model yourself after, who you want to compete with directly, understanding how they're pricing themselves, and ultimately competing on those price points in a way that is strategic and can still give you the leverage you need to push your business forward is going to keep your brand from failing. It's going to keep pushing you forward. And then lastly, you need to look at how your competitors are marketing themselves. Here we've already established that your competitors are people directly within your niche, within your industry. They're targeting similar customers to you, so chances are the same customers that they're targeting and that they're marketing themselves towards are going to be the same customers that you want to be marketing yourself towards. So let's just say you're a brand and your customers are aged between 20 and 30. Chances are a lot of the platforms that you're going to be using to reach out to these customers are going to be social media platforms. If your customer demographic is a little bit younger, TikTok might be the option, or if they're a little bit older, Instagram and Facebook might be the option. So this is where looking at where your customers or where your competitors are marketing themselves, how they're marketing themselves, is going to give you the areas that you need to definitely be present in. Let's just say you're doing a phenomenal job with Google Ads, but your competitors are doing a great job with affiliate marketing. Then there's definitely a lost opportunity there. You want to make sure that you're exploring all avenues that you have, and at the same time your competitors have already done the work for you. So why take the hard way and try to figure it out for yourself when you could also make sure that you're implementing these strategies to help you get a leg up on the competition? So marketing strategies are key. Look at where your competitors are marketing themselves and follow suit, and then build your own unique strategy on top of that. And lastly, when it comes to profiling your competitors, you need to strategically analyze their USPs or their unique selling points, because those points may not actually be unique at all. And if it's something that you can immediately duplicate and offer in your brand and then have your own unique selling point, that's going to completely crush, or it's going to completely give you a leg up when it comes to that specific point that they had that they no longer have. All of this is to say that by doing your research, by profiling your competitors, by understanding where they're selling, what their USPs are, who their customers are, where they're marketing themselves, this is going to allow you to identify key strategic holes in their brands that at the end of the day in business is going to allow you to be competitive and is going to allow you to get ahead. Now that you've actually outlined who your competitors are, you've profiled their customer base, where they're marketing themselves, what their USPs are, and ultimately you've looked at the holes that are present in their business, and you know where you need to attack and where you could potentially get a leg up on the competition. Now it's time to perform an internal audit of your business. If you've ever read a business book, or if you've ever been interested in entrepreneurship, you'll know that a SWOT analysis is definitely a big recommendation for anyone starting a business. Well, what is a SWOT analysis? It's an internal review of your business, analyzing your strengths, your weaknesses, the opportunities that you have, and ultimately the threats that are unique to your business. This activity is actually performed to get you more in tune with what makes your business unique and what unique challenges that you have to face and need to overcome. For this exercise, we'll actually use my own personal sportswear brand, Spectre, as an example, because we performed this activity early on into the business to clearly understand what challenges and what hurdles we're going to face. The SWOT analysis is based into a quadrant grid where you have your S, W, O, T, and you sort of list the different challenges or the different characteristics applicable to each of the four namings in each of the quarters. We'll start off with the first quadrant, which is S, which here stands for strengths. One of the core strengths of this business was my personal experience in Fittdesign, building a product design agency that designs, develops, and produces fashion of all sorts over the last 3 to 4 years. What that did is it gave me the technical know-how to create amazing designs, unique designs, to perfectly spec them so that they can get made exactly as per my vision and my recommendations. And this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with early on. They don't know how to communicate their ideas. They don't know how to communicate their designs. And honestly, I was able to cut out the learning curve just because of my 2 to 3 years of experience with Fittdesign before that. At the same time, developing and designing product for the last 3 to 4 years really allowed me to build up a significant network of manufacturers, suppliers, retailers, fabric mills that I was able to work with directly to source the best fabrics, to source the best cut and sew factories, to be able to negotiate MOQ based on my previous business transactions with them, to be able to get the best packaging, and to ultimately create the product exactly as per the vision I needed with minimal trial and error. At the same time, by going straight to the source and by being able to trust the manufacturers I was working with directly, I was able to get very lenient payment terms, and at the same time, I was able to get great payment facilities and great prices, and ultimately I was able to keep my costs down but maximize the profit or maximize the product efficiency, maximize the product quality, and ultimately create a great product that could give my business the leg up it needed on the competition. Next up, we had to analyze our weaknesses. Since this was a brand that we grew in our hometown or our home city of Beirut, Lebanon, the challenge here was the lack of a local market. Obviously, the products that we're creating were definitely a little bit too expensive for the market that we're trying to target. So the lack of a local market meant that we had to immediately go abroad. Also, anyone who knows the region knows that this is not the most business-friendly environment in terms of logistics, in terms of the types of resources available to us. So that was also a major challenge that we had to face. And then lastly, a lot of core resources that we needed to run our business, such as the internet, such as actual shipping facilities, were either too expensive or were just not up to par. We had to use DHL, so at the same time, we were limited with what was a monopolized shipping market, which meant that our shipping prices were much higher. Those ate into our profit margins. And of course, every single business is going to deal with their unique challenges. And this was one of our challenges, which is the lack of a local market and just the lack of resources and logistics that we needed to accurately and properly run our business competitively, as opposed to, or when compared to, brands in the Western markets. Next up, we had to actually analyze the unique opportunities that a business like ours could be faced with. Well, we actually targeted a very specific niche of elevated men's sportswear / casual wear apparel. And the reason that we specifically targeted this niche is I noticed that in the market, especially the sportswear market, it's overly saturated with female-focused brands. And of course, yes, 80% of consumer spending in the United States happens from the women's side, but it also meant that there's 20% that was potentially an untapped market that we could position ourselves as a core and key player in. This was a major opportunity, so we went full force ahead and we developed a quality menswear brand that was priced in a value-focused or a value-centric state, with items that were minimalistic, that were highly functional, that were made out of the best fabrics. And ultimately, this was the core opportunity that we wanted to target, an undertapped market where we could really have a first layer advantage in. And last but not least here, we had to analyze what the threats to our businesses were. Here, ultimately, these are the obstacles that your business is going to have to face, and you need to identify what these obstacles are so that you can move past them and you can actually begin to move and rise to the next level. When it comes to the threats that we had to face personally in terms of the Spectre brand, a lot of those were related to our core weaknesses, simply because our weaknesses were related to things that we couldn't control. So the threat was specifically that weakness. It was the lack of a stable business environment that at any day could throw us off kilter, could force us to have to completely change the way that we run our business. At the same time was the lack of available immediate resources and competitive resources. A clear example of this is DHL, which monopolized the local market in terms of shipping, and they could really play with the prices as they needed to, when they needed to. And then lastly, the threat was something like Corona, which created an unstable environment where everything was raising in prices and ultimately was creating a day-to-day in a week-to-week situation where we couldn't really analyze what we could do. We didn't know if we could have our staff in the office. We didn't know if we had to close down the next week. It just created a lot of uncertainty. And then honestly, this is a bonus one, which was the lack of a local market. This was a major threat because immediately we were caught on the back foot and we had to market ourselves in markets that we had never been to, we had never seen, and we didn't have as strong an understanding in as other brands. Well guys, that's it. That is a wrap on this episode. To recap quickly, in this episode, we looked at the key reason why your business is failing. And ultimately, we decided that the reason that most fashion brands are failing is a lack of maintaining a competitive edge that allows them to be competitive with their competitors. I'm saying competitors a lot, but to be competitive and to get a leg up and to stay ahead of the crowd. How does one stay competitive in a fashion-based market? Well, you start by understanding who your competitors are, by accurately profiling them, understanding what their unique selling points are, understanding who their customers are, knowing what their purchasing habits are, where they purchase, how often they purchase. By understanding those core traits of your actual competitors, you're able to make the moves that you need to stay competitive and to keep pushing ahead. At the same time, it's about internally reviewing yourself, understanding what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what the core, where the unique opportunities to your business are, and ultimately what are the threats that are going to be available against your business. Guys, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Hopefully you learned a thing or two. Also, I'd highly recommend you check the link in the description. I hold one-on-one consultation calls every single week and slots are limited. So let's just say you're looking to start your own brand and you're looking to get some feedback or some information on how to organize your product range, how to create a efficient marketing strategy to get your brand off the ground, how to source manufacturers, or ultimately just how to select the best fabrics for specific products, definitely check the link in the description and we can hop on that call immediately. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Fittdesign TV. Until next week's episode, stay awesome.